Very good. Okay. So turn to the book of Ecclesiastes. Let's go through some preliminaries on the book. It was written by Solomon, son of David. You'll see that right in the first verse. It says, the words of the preacher, the son of David, king of Jerusalem. Yeah, who's that? I mean, all right, so he's the king over Israel in verse 1 and in verse 12, son of David. Probably written around 935 BC. Just to kind of give you some background, Solomon wrote 3 books. He wrote in his early years our next one, Song of Solomon. The young years, the years of young love, where he's just madly in love with the Shulamite woman that we'll get to next week. Young puppy love. So that's his first book. In his middle years, he will do Proverbs, which we will do after Song of Solomon, his book of wisdom. And then in his later years, when he's like old and wise and has learned all of life's lessons, is the book we're doing now, Ecclesiastes. All right, so this is the old one, written from the guy who has been there, done that, and is going to try and tell us, don't do that. Okay? It's been called the Royal Diary of Solomon. The Greek word is ecclesia, E-K-K-E-S-I-A, means the preacher. All right? And he says that. These are the words of the preacher. That's where the title of the book comes from. You should probably know that as well. All right? That's where we get the title Ecclesiastes from Ecclesia, the preacher. All right? He is reflecting on his own life, trying to give words of wisdom probably to his children, but obviously as an inspired book, God's using this to impart wisdom to an entire generation, both present and future. All right? We're going to use this word a lot. Well, Solomon's going to use it a lot. And the Hebrew word, habel, vanity. We might as well get the definition out of that out of the way right now, because we're going to use that a lot. Okay? It means meaningless, without purpose, of no value. Meaningless, of no purpose, no value. Got all that? H, sorry, higher. Yeah, okay. Clarence Darrow, who did the monkey trial years ago, said there's a statement in the Bible that summarizes anyone's life outside of Christ. And it's Luke chapter 5, verse 5, that says, we have toiled all night and taken nothing. Okay? What we're going to be talking about, what Solomon talks about, is that theme of working all of your life for vanity. All right? He talks about working under the sun versus working under the sun. All right? S-U-N versus S-O-N. Okay? It's like that old story that I heard years ago where it goes something like this. I dig the ditch to get the money, to buy the food, to get the strength to dig the ditch. So I dig the ditch to get the money, and it just goes around and around. I mean, what is the purpose? What is the meaning of it? Ecclesiastes 1:7, that we'll get to in a second, says this. The river runs into the sea, and the sea is never full, yet still, even though it's not full, water returns to the river and flows to the sea. In other words, waters run from the sea to the river, back to the sea, back to the river, back to the sea. Solomon's using that to say, so what? All right? The thing's just running around in circles. And it's a great lesson for us, because at the end of our life, if we've accumulated what good is it from Christ. I used the example for you earlier that toasters make great toast. Not good hammers. They're horrible screwdrivers. They do nothing. Students trying to you will see working, toiling under the sun 29 times. Ecclesiastes is the human perspective of wisdom, where Proverbs is God's perspective of wisdom. And Ecclesiastes is probably the most philosophical book in the Bible. All right? You're going to see this expression, as I said. There's two other expressions that are like the same thing. So when you see them, okay, under the earth and under heaven. Okay? You will see those coming up as well in, let's see, you're going to see under the sun. The first time under the sun is used is in verse 3 of chapter 1. Under the earth, verse 4, and under heaven, verse 13 in Ecclesiastes 1 again. Okay? And you will see that coming up soon when we start to read it. Okay? Now, let's talk a little bit about our author here. Solomon totally dedicated his life to God. We haven't got time to really read through it right now because we're in our short class that ends at 1:15. But you should know in 1 Kings chapter 3, Solomon has an encounter with God. And he asked, most of you know the story, but I want to get it out there for anybody that doesn't. He asked Solomon, kind of like a test of his heart, what can I do for you? Okay? How can I help you? What can I do for you? And Solomon, instead of asking for riches or anything else, he asks for a wise mind to be able to rule his people. He didn't care about kingdoms. I want more land. I want more, I want women. I want territory. I want gold, silver. He didn't ask for any of that. He just asked for he wanted the mind of Christ, basically, to rule his people. And God was so impressed with that he gave him what he asked for and everything else. Okay? Gave him, the kingdom prospered immensely under Solomon. Solomon was so powerful that nobody dared touch him. Okay? And he had an intellect that probably is unsurpassed in the entire universe. People would put questions to him and they would just marvel. The Queen of Sheba, you know the story, comes there and quizzes him and walks away and gives him all these treasures because she's just in shock at the wisdom that this guy had. Okay? But here's the problem. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verses 1 through 11, God specifically says not to intermarry with foreigners who worship other gods. Okay? Tells them specifically not to do that. And in 1 Kings chapter 11, again, I wish I had time to go through this, but 1 Kings chapter 11, 1 through 8, we see that Solomon's heart is turned away by his multitude of wives. The numbers are 700 wives.